Hello, everybody, and welcome to the newest episode of the Below Average Film Review. Where what was our slogan again?
The films aren't always below average, but we certainly are.
That's definitely it. I'm
Clearly,
glad
we
you
really
remember.
are.
I'm glad you remember. I'm definitely hitting that below average quota. Well, today's episode is Frankenstein, directed by James Wales, released in 1931, originally part of the Universal Monster films. And we didn't make a promise of what we'd do last week, but we're doing Frankenstein now. Welcome to the Monster Mash, everybody.
We did the mash. We did the monster mash. I shouldn't sing. We might get
No,
copyright
we'll
claim.
get copyright strike. We'll get a copyright strike for the videos we make no money off.
Excellent. YouTube
What?
is now making no money.
Right. So, Frankenstein, what do you think?
Um, hmm. Yeah,
Um,
I read the synopsis. I read a couple of reviews. It's really highly rated on Rotten Tomatoes, by the way. I think it had 100 actually. I can kind of see why, but there's bits
I
of it that
don't see why.
really jarred me. I
I
don't
don't think I see
agree.
why.
Hang on, I'm gonna double check that
Hmm.
I'm not lying about that real quick.
I mean, if it did get 100, that's kind of amazing to
Uh,
me.
yeah,
That
100%.
Wow, I'd say that's definitely from the impact of the character
Yeah,
or
that's.
the monster.
I don't think it's quite deserving of
But
that.
we're not here to discuss the book or pop culture because pop culture, it's a thing.
It happened.
What do you think of the film, the original film based on the
Hmm.
book by Mary Shelley?
We're not discussing that book though.
But we shall mention it because it's important.
Yeah, film. I think it definitely had good bits, but there are bits I wasn't so fond of. Like, it definitely had elements that I quite enjoyed throughout,
Yeah,
but bits of it really irked me sometimes.
like what?
I always found the pacing felt a little bit too quick, and like on some elements, like when they first go and speak to God, what's his name? I've already forgotten it. Dr. Baldwin. That's it.
Baron. Wait, what?
Yeah, when they first go speak to Dr. Baldwin, like, come, please,
Oh,
let's go see Frankenstein. We need to help him. He is ill, and he says, no, I don't want to do that. It's your problem or something, but not directly. That's paraphrasing. And
yes,
then
yeah.
they say please, and he says no, and they say please again. He says okay, sure. It's like
Yeah,
it's like that takes place in like the space of about 10 seconds. Like how easy is it to convince this man?
I mean,
And then like he
yeah.
seems so concerned with all this experimentation, and the next thing you know, like a couple scenes down the line, he's just sat in the lab with Frankenstein watching as the monster just walks around. Like, what changed your mind?
He's there to say it's a monster of nature. It shouldn't exist.
Yeah, I mean, I can't entirely rag on him on that because even though he sticks around, he does explicitly state that that thing should be shot.
Yeah, says it all the time.
Yeah,
But know what happens to him in the end.
yeah. You can't be saying that no
Uh,
more.
mm. I
Overall,
thought it was a pretty good film. I think. Are you about to sum up?
yeah, just
I thought you already summed up at the
no, I was just
start.
say
But sure.
overall, like it's pretty good, but I definitely have some problems.
Yeah, I think it's a very, very, very good film in terms of making you think. In terms of like themes it plays with, and like questions makes you ask. But most of that comes from like the original book.
Yeah, see,
And as a film, I don't think it's great. I don't
yeah,
think it's a great film. I think it does a pretty good job at adapting like the ideas of the novel, but I think it definitely falls short in terms of like creating like an engaging viewing experience. And I think so definitely some of the choices in terms of the filmmaking, in terms of like the editing and the way it chooses to shoot itself is questionable from James Whale. James Whale, yeah, Whale, I will
yeah.
say.
I yeah, I quite agree with that. Like, I found some of like a lot of the shots were very static and unmoving, and it's like, oh, okay, this is quite
Uh,
still.
I mean, there was some like tracking shots.
Yeah, there was one as far as I can remember, like through the town streets, and there was like a tilt up, there was a pan to the
Yeah.
right, there was a couple of zooms.
I mean, there was. I mean, yeah. I mean, there's close. There's close. There's a lot of camera
Yeah,
shots.
but there's not a lot of movement, really.
Sure. I mean, there's a lot. There's not a lot of movement within the scenes. Within the scenes themselves.
Hmm, sure.
It's mostly characters well, sitting down. But yeah. I don't know. I don't think it doesn't do anything super unique. It feels like quite basic filmmaking.
Yeah,
You know.
it's quite sad
But
because
it
the cinematography was quite cool because he did Casablanca, like you told me
he
earlier.
did. Arthur Eaton, yeah.
It's
Very
cool.
interesting, man. Um, I will say it does use them very effectively, though. You know, like when they're first revealing the monster, you hear his footsteps, you see Frankenstein's like almost like panicked reaction to preparing for him, and then the door slowly opens, bathed in darkness. For some reason, he's looking the opposite direction and open the door. That was weird.
Yeah, if I'm remembering correctly, didn't he like walk in backwards?
Yeah, he then walked in backwards, slowly turned around, and you finally see the monster. I mean, it's good. It's like pretty good suspense, but that was just kind of weird.
Felt like a Michael Jackson thing to do.
Sure,
Mm.
I could see Frankenstein being the monster, not Frankenstein. Being my Michael Jackson thing.
Frankenstein saying
So,
Billie Jean. Oh, for God's sake, I did it.
yeah,
Frankenstein's
okay. Well,
monster
we
doing
both done
Billie
it now.
Jean.
We both fucked it.
Uh,
Oh well. I yeah. I don't think there's. I don't really. I really don't think there's too much to say about the film. Like too much you can really like praise or like criticize it for in terms of like filmmaking alone because
yeah,
it's really nothing special.
yeah, technically, it's kind of something very easy to kind of gloss over, I think. Because like some films that really nail the technical aspect. This one didn't really do a lot for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think it does a serviceable job. It definitely makes some like large mistakes though.
Yeah.
I think it uses way too much use of like fades,
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
fading out of a shot, moving location, fading back in. It feels very very disjointed, constantly jumping back between the Frankenstein household and like the laboratory with just fades in, fade
Yeah.
ins. Feels very very disjointed.
They obviously there was like structure to where they were positioned, but it did feel kind of almost random at points. I thought it was just quite sudden for me in some regards. It was like, oh, I'm just watching the scene play out. It feels like there's gonna be more. Nope, fade out. Next bit.
Yeah, I mean, it does move quite quickly.
Yeah,
But I would praise it for that because I feel like the movie is the perfect length that it needs to be. 'Cause it felt like if they tried to add more, pad out more scenes, it just felt like it would just become those the padding is just useless.
yeah. It's
So
like
I do think it's the perfect length.
yeah, if you say turn it into like a 2 hour film, it'd probably fall short, even shorter,
Yeah,
because it's just dragging on at that point.
yeah, I think it would become a boring film at that point.
Yeah. There's only
It
so
just
much you
feels
can
like
do with Big
killer.
Monster Man.
Yeah, I mean, I think it did a good job with what it did.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have. I mean, I say that, but I would have added like maybe an extra scene at the end, make the ending not very anticlimactic, where we don't even get like a checkup on Frankenstein. All we get is just him in the background,
Just sitting there, and his father's like, "Hi, have some wine." Psych, I'm having it.
and then he closes the door behind him as well. It's just like, well, let's celebrate, and then the film ends. It's just a very very anticlimactic ending. Another bit more at the end, maybe a
Yeah.
little reunion between Frankenstein and Elizabeth, maybe.
Yeah, especially with like following up from the scene where Frankenstein's monster is literally being burned alive. It's like this suddenly action-filled tense moment where the monster is finally being brought to justice in inverted commas as the town would see it because of the whole mob
Yeah.
mentality thing. But like
Yep.
after that kind of massive build-up moment, it's just like cut to the next bit, have a glass of wine, never mind, we're done.
We're done here, and then it just ends.
Yeah, it's very sudden and not in a good
Yeah, it
way.
is. Yeah, it's not. I mean, do you have anything else to say about this film in terms of like filmmaking? Because I don't really.
Yeah, I don't think I massively do. Like, on a level, I like how kind of the drawn out overall the sequence for like the wedding and all the street shit was. Because like I don't know if that's technically technical or like filmmaking per se, but I like the kind of length of that because it builds tension quite nicely.
Yeah.
Though it does feel a little bit out of place
Yeah.
considering how fast the film moves otherwise.
Mm. Yeah. I mean, I actually just remembered the point, but like, the kind of what I said earlier, but the first reveal of the monster as an actual like entity as well.
Hmm.
Because they raise him into the sky, you see the lighting effects, everything, the lighting, and you see like the reactions of the characters, and then it's the slow drop down of the monster back inside, and then also just the little finger twitching, and
Yeah.
then you just get the Frankenstein's reaction. I thought like you see the lighting there, and then also the building up of the monster being alive is very 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 good there.
Yeah, they executed that bit really well, and I said we said we were going to ignore like pop culture and all that, but that scene has become like one of the most iconic and classic things.
Well, it's the "It's alive" part.
Yeah,
That's the famous line. It's alive. It's
it's
alive.
alive, but
It's
not for long.
alive. No. Well, I mean, it does survive in the books.
But we're not here to discuss the books, are we?
Nope, because books are boring. We like things on screen.
We like things
Right.
that move, not page.
Yeah.
Ooga
Uh.
booga, film student.
Mm, Ooga booga. Me like moving image.
Cavemen like things that
Yeah.
move.
You kind of sound like Frankenstein. How he would talk
Uh,
now. That's just a zombie. Okay.
oh, it's Halloween season. Anything goes.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. We're 6 days in.
Good enough.
Well. Okay. Yeah. Well, moving on to the parts of the film that I personally really, really liked was the character of Frankenstein specifically. Less the characters in the film, but more the character of Frankenstein. And then also, the ideas of the film.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what's your opinion on either the characters or the character of Frankenstein specifically? Let's start with that.
I had to make sure I wasn't mixing up Frankenstein and his monster for a minute, so.
Or let's say Frankenstein, his monster, and the other characters.
Well, I quite like Frankenstein as a character, really, because his obsession with his work is quite interesting, and like the ideas he kind of presents with creating this life, and like he talks about how it feels to almost like play or become God at a level when he
Yeah,
creates that life. I just thought that was really interesting. He seems cool. I don't know if that's the
yeah.
correct word to describe him, but
He
it's like
seems cool. The
below
God
average.
complex. Yeah,
He definitely is an interesting character. Like, there's this lot of like mystery and speculation around him as it starts as well, because there's all this talk about how he's supposed to get married to Elizabeth, and then there's also his friendship. Well, not really described as friendship because you don't know who the hell Victor is until like halfway through the film,
sure.
unless I missed
Well,
something. But
well, I mean, we know he's an associate.
yeah, but there's like this kind of speculation about him and whether he's mad or not, and it's quite interesting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's all about like him being consumed by his work, consumed with the idea of playing God and like reviving the dead, even potentially you could say some immortality stuff in there. And
Yeah.
it's all about like the limits of humanity in terms of that aspect and like the madness of, most people would say he says I can revive the dead. You say shut up. As his professor does, really, as Waldman
I can
he
revive
said
the dead. Fuck off. Prove it.
yeah, I mean, that's what they all say. That's what Victor says to him. He calls him crazy. Prove it, and then he proves it.
Yeah, and then Victor does a
So,
full 180. He's like, oh, he's sane. That still angers me.
yeah, yeah. I mean, and then but like seeing Frankenstein and consumed by that, and then slowly come to like the realization of the evil he's created, and that I don't know if I'd say a god complex specifically, but definitely an ego or like an
Yeah,
obsession, as that slowly boils away, and he realizes the monster from his perspective that he's actually created, specifically after like Elizabeth gets attacked by it.
yeah, it's quite interesting as well. I found like it almost goes completely full circle with what he creates destroys him because he survives being thrown off a fucking windmill. Ooh, voice
Yeah,
crack. uh,
I do ballsy from him falling off the windmill and surviving.
yeah. I'm quite impressed he lived. Also, I love how I'm pretty sure there's like a rag doll or something for that. It just looked really funny.
Oh yeah, it's definitely a human-sized like dummy. It's one of the dummy,
Yeah, you could tell by like the movement.
definitely.
It was quite funny, but like it's quite interesting how like he almost goes entirely full circle, and like this obsession is literally what almost completely destroys him.
Yeah, I mean, it destroyed others. It
It just
destroyed the people in his life. It killed Fritz and it killed Waldman and it hurt the girl, or killed the girl actually, and it almost killed his wife or fiance.
I was wondering who the girl was. I
Like,
was like, oh yeah, Maria.
yeah, Maria. I just call her the girl.
Yeah, I thought you were talking about his wife for a second.
No, I just call her. I know I'd say that's Elizabeth or fiance. But anyway,
Fiance. Yes.
yeah, I think he's a very interesting character, especially like at the start when he's introduced. Because I mean, when we first see him, he's he's a bit of a
Mm.
creep when he's just spying on the wedding,
And then
or
he's
the
just digging
funeral,
up a
not the
grave.
wedding, with
Those are
Fritz.
two very separate occasions.
Yeah, but I'd say the introduction of him is very cool as well because he's dressed and presented in a way, his mise en scene.
He's all
He's
seen.
yeah, presented in the way to look, he looks very formal, looks like a just a normal person or a normal upper class person in that
Mm.
society, but through kind of like his jerky motions and specifically his facial expressions when in talking in those scenes, you definitely get the sense of some like Anhidito mentioned madness or obsession, which then gets fueled later on when you actually see what he's doing. He cuts down the corpse and you see the body and you see the monster he's trying to make.
Yeah, and but that is like the indication of the madness. I remember there's like this will be paraphrasing because my memory's terrible, but
Of course.
when they're like digging up the grave right at the start and he's holding on to the coffin, he like speaks directly to the audience saying, "Oh, he's not dead. He's just sleeping," or something like that. It's like,
Does he show that? Does he
yeah,
say that?
I'm pretty
Maybe he
sure he
says that
does.
to Fred.
Oh,
Maybe he says that to Fred.
it's either to Fritz or directly at the camera, but he says something along the lines of "He's not dead. He's just asleep" or something like that. So
Yeah,
base, yeah.
I know he says something like that, but breaking the fourth wall there
Yeah.
sounds
There's at one point
doesn't
he looks
sound
directly at
like
the camera,
the
but I
same.
don't know if it's like a fourth wall break or if he's directing it at Fritz or not. I can't remember.
I don't think fourth wall break was even something people was a concept back
Yeah,
then.
I don't think it was necessarily intended to be like a fourth wall break. It was just he was looking at the camera. I think it was
Yeah.
some.
Anyway, I think we're getting
Yeah,
too lost in the idea of the fourth wall break.
the fourth wall didn't exist, but actually no, it did exist back then, but they were confined by it anyway.
Yep. But yeah, I think Frankenstein's pretty. I think he's a very interesting character, very
Mm.
cool character. Yeah, as you described, cool.
Yeah, he's
He's
developed
definitely a
well.
character. I think he's definitely a character you like, sympathize with. You like.
Yeah,
You want to see him like do well, or at least I wanted to see him do well. Especially after he comes to like his senses again and starts, returning to his normal life.
yeah,
And obviously yeah,
yeah.
obviously that's contrasted with the monster he creates being kind of like his ultimate, like the idea of the creation that destroys him, and that's definitely it's like the main conflict of the film, definitely. Even though it comes in, well, the monster only comes in about halfway through, is it?
I think it comes in about 20-minute mark. I think actually. No,
Or when he's
no,
actually
that's far too
alive and
soon.
walking.
Oh, live walking. I think that's like 25 half. Yeah, it's about halfway in actually.
Yeah. Um. But yeah, I mean, it's just the classic idea of the creation beating the master.
It's not just the student that
Right.
can do it anymore.
I don't know. Well, I mean, he plays God. He creates life. Life comes and tries to kill him back.
Yeah.
It's mad at him for bringing him into the world. And like as we all know, Frankenstein. He was the real monster
Ooh.
trying to play life. Well, I mean, that's the takeaway from the book.
Yeah.
But like, I think the monster. I mean, the monster itself is a very interesting character.
It
You know?
develops quite interestingly. I think like a part of that development was quite sudden. Like, because on the level he is kind of childlike in the beginning, but
Yeah.
like sometimes he also feels quite still like the criminal the brain once belonged to. I found anyway. And then
Yeah.
like in that kind of mindset, especially after he just committed a goddamn murder, going into the scene where he meets Maria and he's playing with her, it feels kind of quite sudden and a little bit jarring, but also it's quite pleasant. It's like a nice break from the somewhat tense atmosphere of the film, and also the childlike naivety of Maria kind of brings this
Not being
it
scared of him.
yeah. And it kind of gives him a bit more characterization. It makes him feel a bit more human. If a child is seeing him that way, maybe we can see him that way as well.
Sure. I mean, I think earlier you also sympathize with him earlier though. When he's getting, I wouldn't say like tortured, or he's when he's being like tormented by Fritz with the flame.
Oh yeah.
I'd say you definitely have sympathy for him in that way because you see him in like physical distress. You feel bad for him. You see him as just an innocent creature being tormented by one of the people who brought him into the world that killed him.
I was
So
gonna
I feel like
describe
you
Fritz
definitely.
as a twat with a fire, but
I mean, sure. I mean, he's just a certain power over something he's never had power before, has he?
yeah, sure.
But I mean, I almost call him Frankenstein. Then I see the monster as I see him acting with almost like a childlike mind,
Yeah.
because the film offers up the explanation of it's the criminal brain that makes him do these things. But I see it as more of like he's it's almost like he's a new brain, and his new brain that hasn't developed yet. So like, unlike a child, they're not able to like process emotions properly, and so that's why you get the angry lashing out and the from like the confusion of their situation and the anger at being controlled and tormented by some of the people, and but then also uh when he's interacting with Maria, the almost like the childlike wonder that he almost takes on, and he looks genuinely like he looks happy like a child. And
Yeah.
then obviously because he doesn't know how to like process happiness, he takes it too far. He's going too far. He's thinking of floating these flowers will float her. So that's how I see Frankenstein as a character. That's why he's the ultimate innocent person in the end.
The way you kind of described that, like, I actually agree with that more the more I think about it, really, because, like, he is basically like a little toddler trapped in a giant man's body, really, because, like, the brain, as they say,
Yeah,
it's, like, nearly developed. It might have some of the leftover tendencies per se, but that's up for debate. But, like,
yeah,
what
interpretation.
yeah, there's an interpretation. That's what I'm looking for. um,
Yeah,
but like for example, when he does kill people, like a toddler would throw like a temper tantrum. They might go over and smack their parent's leg and cry. Whereas in his case, that
yeah,
temper tantrum is taken to the extreme because he has the physical force of this assembled mass of a body that is just massively overpowering. And then
yeah.
that's why you
Super
kind of
strong.
see him so with like childlike wonder as well. Like he, on top of that, he also can't speak. He's quite stiff when he moves, which I perceived on level to be kind of like this onset of rigor mortis, but you can also see how it could be compared to like the movement of a
Yeah,
child, like stiff and
yeah,
new, and like
yeah.
again, he can't speak; he only
He's still
grunts.
young.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, it's just something that I thought about when watching the films. Probably also just generally out there as a interpretation of the original book.
I never really thought about it like that. Like I noticed like there's a bit of childlike wonder mixed in there when he's playing with the flowers and then throws Maria in the water, and I can't help but laugh at that still because it was so sudden it caught me off guard.
I knew like the general plot points of the film, so it didn't surprise me. But sure,
All I saw
I
was
mean,
a synopsis on Wikipedia where it was like, they put a
you're
criminal brain in there.
You were laughing when he picked up the little girl and she screamed, "No, stop! You're hurting me!" And you were just laughing at that.
No, it wasn't that bad. I was like, what's going on there? Is he gonna like take her to front? Then he just throws her into the water. It's like,
Yeah, I
oh,
mean,
right.
it plays into the child's naivety of his brain. You
Mm.
know,
I also quite like the
you go
foreshadowing from the father while we're on that scene as well. For when he says to Maria, "I can't stay. I'm too busy." And it kind of like sets up that something's going to happen to one of them. And I was under the impression that he was going to sneak up on the father and kill him or something, or like he'd play with Maria for a bit, be genuinely happy. The father would come back, and like, "Yo, what the fuck is this thing?" And then Frankenstein's monster would
no.
just kill him.
Yeah, I mean, you could. I mean, I saw the thing about the father saying he's too busy, other than maybe just being a plot device.
Hmm.
Um, but also, paralleling with Frankenstein. You know, too
Yeah.
busy with my work to go to visit my fiance, to go to the wedding. I'm too busy. You know.
Hey, right. I can definitely see
Yeah.
that.
I mean, you see, there's a parallel there. I don't think there's too. I don't think there's like much subcontext to that. So I don't know if that's intentional. I could see it just being like a plot device, but
Yeah.
neat little parallel.
I just thought it was a bit of foreshadowing, really, because like I also like the subversion of
I
expectation. Like from my perspective, that I thought the father was going to die, but it's actually the little girl that dies.
Yeah. I mean, I don't agree with that, but I mean, you could definitely see it that way. So, do you think Frankenstein, not Frankenstein, God damn it, do you think the monster? Do you think he's ultimately innocent? Do you think Frankenstein's the real monster? Let me ask you them too.
Oh God, that's like such a big philosophical and moral question. I
I,
wasn't expecting to have that sprung on me.
well, I mean, that's like the main question that people take from just the idea of Frankenstein in general is who was really the monster? Is Frankenstein an innocent creature?
Hmm. I feel like it's both, like both of
What do
them
you
and
think?
neither at the same time. It's quite bizarre because Frankenstein does do those quite horrible things, but at the same time he has this kind of developing mind like a child. He doesn't necessarily know the consequences of what he's doing, even though the aggression seems kind of premeditated on some level, like it was kind of already planted there. It also does feel like the
Mhm.
temper tantrum of a toddler, and then with Frankenstein, he's just become obsessed with this idea of creating life. He wants to like see his life's work through and prove that he's not crazy. And inadvertently, he didn't mean to create this horrible monstrosity in quotation marks as like the horrible town mob sees it. But at the
Mm,
same time, he's still meddling with forces that should be far beyond human control. We shouldn't be able to do that.
and be able to create life.
Yeah, I mean we
Yeah, I
can.
mean,
It's called birth, but
yeah, but I mean that's different.
yeah, very different thing.
I, I would say Frankenstein is the monster, you know,
Hmm.
because he was obsessed with his own uh like a god complex ego, whatever you want to call it. He was obsessed to that to the point where he wasn't thinking about the life he was creating. He only wanted to create it. He didn't see it as like an actual individual. And obviously, I think it's quite obvious, even though it is the monster, it's people refer to as it. They tormented. It's Frankenstein, not Frankenstein. The monster, quite clearly, it's human in every way, really, except from the way it was born, wasn't human. So like I definitely see Frankenstein as the real monster, as most other people would, for just playing with life, not caring for the individuals, also robbing graves and taking parts from the undead. Fucked up.
Yeah, yeah, that is
But
really messed up, actually.
yeah, but then also see the monster as completely innocent, a completely innocent creature who they never never asked for anything to happen to them, and then they were put into the world and subjugated to terrible, terrible treatment and put in a world that they don't know. They had no time to like actually understand like the world they were in, and as evidently led to the monster's death, and that all came from the hands of Frankenstein.
Hmm,
Definitely the real monster.
sure, because he does go back around and kill, well, not kill per se, like he's part of the mob that kills Frankenstein's monster.
Yeah,
Aha, I
yeah.
didn't
Well,
say, I didn't call
he
Frankenstein.
He does distinctly want him dead.
Yeah, so I can
Yeah,
definitely understand the argument that he is the monster in the situation.
yeah, definitely.
It's a big moral question. What is it with like sci-fi films and these creations of like something that we have made that is at least the moral question of is it human? What is it with these
Well,
films?
I mean, that's one of the things you can do with sci-fi, though, isn't it?
Every episode
It's
we've done
like
on this podcast so far has raised this question. Blade Runner did it. Solaris did it. This one did it.
they all do it in different ways,
Yeah,
though.
but the base
That's what
question
that.
remains the same.
Yeah, I mean, isn't yeah, but that's a trope of the genre, is it not?
Yeah, fair point actually.
That's like one of the questions of the genre. That's one of the things that you explore in sci-fi, and well, not evidently, ultimately, one of the like conclusions uh, that are always come to when talking about sci-fi is that humans are almost always the real monsters. They're bad people. You know, you can use sci-fi to explore the futility of human life, and then also concepts that you couldn't really explore in the modern world, like what is a human, which you then have to set in the future, or with not real science.
Sci-fi is a cool genre. I like it.
What?
Sci-fi is a cool genre. I like it.
Yeah, pretty cool genre. Unless you're watching like Interstellar.
Oh dear. Or
Anyway, but we're not here to slag off other films. We're here to talk about Frankenstein.
we'll slag off those other films at a later date.
Yep, that's for after the Monster Mash. So, I mean, I've talked about like most really everything that I want to talk about. Anything else? Any other topics? Any other specific points you'd like to mention?
um, I'm not entirely sure. I'm kind of like flicking through everything I wrote down about the film, and like a lot of it's just like talking about mise en scene by that point, like about how for example, the lab, Frankenstein's lab, like it really sets the tone for being a sci-fi film because it has this massively mad scientist vibe. It's portrayed really
Hmm.
well in like the physical effects that they use, like all the electricity and the Tesla orb, whatever it's called. I think it's a ball, not an orb.
Yeah.
But like that just
Yeah.
all look really cool, and the costume as well for Frankenstein, where it's like a mix between this lab coat and a butcher's apron. It kind of represents the
Mm.
duality of what he's doing. He's like a butcher in some regards because of how he's been cutting up corpses, but he is still a scientist for what he is doing overall with biology.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the mise en scene definitely conveys a lot, and it specifically does convey like really the origins of the mad scientist thing.
Yeah, kind of
You know,
set the
they got
precedent.
popularized. They got popularized massively after the film
Yeah.
or the book
Also, it feels like early sections of film noir in some regards. Like not full film noir like you
with
see in like Casablanca,
some
but
of the
like
with some of the lighting.
yeah, some lighting all like there's a lot of
Yeah.
suits and dresses as well.
Hmm. Well, I'd say it's more film noir in terms of the lighting in the first like 10 minutes, maybe,
Yeah.
because I feel like it definitely uses a lot of darkness and a lot of stylized shadows at
Well,
the start up until it gets to the lab.
I feel the lighting also kind of represents the monster's development as a character because he's always kept in the dark at first. He's like represented as this evil thing, but then when he's out in the light with Maria, he's more soft and childlike.
Yeah, and then every other point we see him onwards afterwards, it's at night in
Yeah.
the dark, and the only other time we see him in brightness is when he's burning to death.
Whoops.
Yeah, I mean that's not what you want.
Not really. That's not an ideal situation to be in.
No. Well, let me ask you one last aside question about the film specifically
Mhm.
before we wrap up. What did you think of some of the side characters? You know, specifically like the Professor, Fritz, Elizabeth. Maybe not Victor.
Oh, I can't go on the rant about how I hate Victor.
Um,
Does he even count as a character? He's shit.
yeah, I don't know why he's in the film. I don't know why he does nothing.
He does nothing useful at
Like
all. He
the,
just
thi-
stands
the thi-
there.
he does three things in the film. He says, "I love you, Elizabeth," and then he walks around. He walks around with Frankenstein when they're looking for the monster, and then helps lift the body. That's all he does.
Also, can I just? I
I mean,
hate the 180 he does so much.
what do you mean?
Like,
At what point?
when he's in the lab, he's like, "Oh my God, Frankenstein, you are crazy." Fade to black, fade back in. You're in Baron Frankenstein's office. Oh, your son's not crazy. He's in perfect health.
Oh yeah, when he see, but that's after he's seen him bring the monster to life.
Yeah, but Frankenstein clearly isn't stable.
I guess, but like Elizabeth does the same thing really
Yeah,
as well.
I get why
It's
like
just like, well,
Elizabeth.
please come home.
Yeah, I get why Elizabeth on a level would do it because like she's meant to be his wife, but like there's no really, unless I again miss something, there's not really much of a prior relationship for Victor to be established. Like there's unless again I've missed something, which I keep saying, I need to stop.
Well, I mean,
Unless like
you could also, you could just say Victor's doing it for Elizabeth because he loves Elizabeth.
yeah, sure, there is a bit of a love triangle going on there, but like regardless of that
And,
necessarily, like it feels like there's no reason for him to lie. He feels like the type of character who would say, "Yeah, that bitch is crazy."
I disagree. I feel like he would act. I feel like he cares enough for Elizabeth, and obviously he's the best man for Frankenstein to where he would defend his interests from his father.
Hmm.
Because he's only defending it from his father.
Sure, he does say to Frankenstein's face that he's nuts.
Yeah, I was also gonna say like maybe he's there to act. He acts kind of like the straight man almost.
Hmm.
You know, like reacting to like the craziness of Frankenstein, but it doesn't really feel like they do much with that. And then also his wife and the professor are still there, and they're acting like that, and the professor acts like that more like commenting on the monster itself. So yeah, yeah, I don't know why Victor's in this film.
He serves no purpose.
What do you think about the other characters then?
The Baron felt like comedic relief. I'm sorry, but he felt like
What are you? What really?
on some level, yeah, because like at the end, that he's like, "Oh yes, I'll take the wine." Like this, like
I
he's the one who like occasionally cracks jokes. It's like the joke about him trying to get up the stairs. Like I don't necessarily think he's like full
mm,
on comedic relief per se. That's just how I found him. Like on sometimes he just didn't feel like he slotted in quite right. But
I think he's an egotistical foil, is what I found from him, because he's the only character in the film who throughout the entire thing doesn't care about what Frankenstein wants to work on or what he wants to do specifically. He only cares about him, getting married and all that. He doesn't care about his work. He doesn't care about the science. So you could, and he's obviously got quite an ego. Definitely a
mm,
classist as well. The rich people can drink the wine,
these
the
blossoms
servants
have
can
been
have
in
the
my family
champagne.
for 3 generations. Yada yada yada. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
and the champagne.
yeah,
What
and
a
the poor can have
downgrade.
beer. What he says.
Honestly,
But yeah,
champagne is shit.
yeah, I know. I see him as the foil
Mm.
to mostly the initial foil to what Frankenstein is doing up until he regrets it himself. I don't know. I feel like he's a useful character. I think good
Denying
character.
that he doesn't have like I'm not saying he doesn't have use. He felt a little bit out of place to me personally, but that's just my opinion.
I disagree
Fair enough.
completely. I think he adds a lot.
And then there's the
Oh God,
Burgermaster.
Burgermaster. It's not Burgermaster.
I know it's
Burgo.
Burgo, I know, but still, I'm calling him the Burgermaster because that's how I heard it.
Okay, well, the Burgomaster literally adds. I don't. He doesn't
He
add too
doesn't do
much.
anything. He just walks in
No,
once and says there's no trouble, and he leaves again, and then he
no, he
reappears like
does. He
40
appears.
minutes
Yeah, the
later.
mob. Yeah, when the mob appeals to him.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I think all the other characters are pretty good.
Yeah.
I think Elizabeth, decently well-rounded character. Obviously, very, very stereotypical of the time.
Oh,
Uh,
absolutely.
played, yeah, played damsel in distress one time. The men are constantly just like, "No, I'll go," and she's just like, "Oh, I won't. Oh, but I will." Very, very stereotypical of the time. Not really too much. Not really super unique character, but definitely, obviously, is
She's not poorly written.
no. Well, she plays more as a character that impacts other characters. I'd say similar to how the professor really like the professor's mostly there. Obviously, is like a background, add some background to Frankenstein, but also he's the one who plays the opposition to what Frankenstein's initially doing with his obsession.
Hmm.
I think he fills that role very, very nicely.
Yeah, I quite liked
What do
him.
you think?
I quite liked him as a character.
Yeah,
Oh god.
good thoughts.
Yes, I like him.
A quick aside about Vincent again, not Vincent, Victor.
Vincent Van Victor.
Yeah, no, not Vincent, Victor. One of his dialogue was just actual garbage because he was because it's like it was before they went to go before him and Elizabeth went to go see the professor. He like grabs Elizabeth and goes, "Ah, we'll go see Professor Waldman. He used to be he used to be Frankenstein's professor, you know." It's just like, oh,
Yeah.
good, nice. It's very good showy, not
Thank
very
you,
showy,
Captain.
very
State the
telly of
obvious.
him. Yeah, it's like, oh, Frankenstein, you shouldn't be making corpses. That's immoral of you.
Oh no, it's evil.
I don't know. That's just the one bit of dialogue that made me go, fuck's sake.
Can't blame you, to be honest. I hate Victor.
Yeah, I mean, all the other dialogue was good. I liked it. Probably took it from the book though, so you don't get A star from that. You
Yeah,
get a B. Well done for the well done though.
you get marked down for plagiarism.
Okay, well enough rambling. Let's summarize. Let's summarize our opinions. Overall opinion of the film. Go.
They had good parts, had some not so good parts. Overall, pretty good film.
Nice, concise. Squeeze it in there. Very good. I'd say very, very good in some aspects. Not as good in the other aspects.
Story
That's
wise,
how I'd
good.
sum it up.
Technical,
Yeah, not great as a film, but very, very good in terms of something to think about. Some characters are pretty useless, but the central conflict and the main ideas of the film, very, 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 very good. Can't add any more varies to that.
very, very good. I mean, you could, but we'd be here all day.
Right. So, that's an episode done. We did it finally.
Hell yeah. Back on track.
Uh, that's the Frankenstein episode done. And anyone who watches this, what do you think? Do you think it was good? Have you watched it? Probably not. So, Evan, I've got one final question for you.
What is that?
What are we doing next week?
It's the thing. Woo! I'm actually really excited for
Ooh.
that.
Dude, John Carpenter classic, one of the best horror sci-fi films ever made. Brilliant film.
But which one's
So,
better, that or Alien? We'll find out at the end of the
that
month.
way, yeah. That was episode 3 of the Below Average Film Review on Frankenstein. You enjoyed, whatever. That's good for you. I enjoyed making this, did you? What? Did you enjoy it? Episode 3 of the Below Average Film Review. uh, Join us next week for the thing. And we'll all see you next time for the next episode of the Monster Mash.
Bye, my friends. Hope you enjoyed. Yada yada. We're not friends, but maybe we are. Blah!
Bye. Bye.
Bye.